Hi everybody, welcome to Not Just for Boys. We are going to begin the webinar now. So thank you for joining us. I hope you're all sitting comfortably. We're just going to do a couple of technical checks before we get started. So hopefully you'll be able to hear me and see this slide. If you are having any issues, then please drop us a message using the question tab in the toolbar. To access the toolbar, click on the orange arrow on the right-hand side, the orange button on the right-hand side of your screen with the white arrow on. If you click that, it will open up the toolbar, and on there you will be able to see a variety of tabs that you'll be able to access. If you scroll down to the questions tab, you can pop a question in there if you want to ask us any questions throughout the session. And if you're having any problems right now, then please just pop a question in and we'll deal with it as soon as we can. Or you can email alexiamay@chwarae.com as well, and Alexia will get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so we haven't got any questions. I will move on. Okay, I'm your collaboration. Be with me. Let me put my webcam on so you can see me. I am the collaboration manager at Chwarae, and I'm going to be your host for today. My role is to design and deliver a number of exciting initiatives for girls and women to ensure that they can reach their full potential. And I also work closely with employers in Wales as well to ensure that they can create flexible workplace structures that can benefit the progression of women in the workplace. I'm also joined by my trusty colleague Alexia May, who is our behind the scenes tech guru, and without Alexia these events just would not happen. So yeah, big thanks to Alexia. Myself and Alexia will be keeping an eye on the questions tab throughout today as well. Okay, Chwarae. So for those of you who don't know who Chwarae are, not familiar with us, we are the leading gender equality charity here in Wales, and since 1992, almost 30 years now, we have been working to ensure that women can enter the workplace, develop skills and build rewarding careers. And at Chwarae, we have a vision where every girl and woman is treated equally and is able to fully participate in the economy, in public and political life, and live safe from violence and fear. And at Chwarae, we offer a number of services for women and girls, supporting them to access employment, training and support. And we also work closely with decision makers and government in Wales to ensure that our country is fair and inclusive for women, and to ensure that they have a platform for their voices to be heard. So welcome to Not Just for Boys. In pre-pandemic situations, we would be running live face-to-face events where girls and women can come along and hear all about rewarding careers in science, technology, engineering and maths. And these events would take place face-to-face live at employers' places of work. And this photograph was actually taken at British Airways Maintenance Centre around about 2 years ago now, where we ran a Women in Aviation special. Girls and women come along to these events, they can try trade activities, they can have a day in the life experience of what it is to, what it feels like to work there. They can meet female role models from the industry as well. And it's just a really fun initiative that we absolutely love delivering. But in the last year or so, we have been running these events online, where we are holding careers talks with women from STEM industries. And today, I'm just really pleased that we have 4 amazing speakers. We're here to celebrate International Women in Engineering Day. I'm joined by 4 inspirational guest speakers who are all engineers across the transport sector in Wales. We are joined by Travel in Cymru, Network Rail, Sustrans and Transport for Wales as well. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to briefly introduce our guest speakers, and then we're going to go back then and hear their stories, find out about how they arrived at the career that they have today. Once we've heard all 4 guest speakers, you'll have the opportunity then to ask them any questions that you may have. So again, pop them into the questions tab, and we'll answer those towards the end. We'll also be recording the session as well, so if there's anybody that may have missed the session, we'll be able to just send them the links to this as well, and they can watch it back whenever it's convenient for them. Okay, so let's get started. So Beth, do you want to just pop your webcam on and your microphone and just give a brief introduction of who you are and where you're from today? Thank you.
Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm Beth McLaren and I work as an assistant project manager for Transport for Wales. My role as an assistant project manager consists of working within the infrastructure project team at Transport for Wales.
Brilliant. Thanks, Beth. We'll hear a bit more about Beth's story very shortly. We're now going to hear a quick overview from Tansy. Tansy, do you want to pop your mic on?
Can you see me? Oh, good. Yeah. My name's Tansy Appleby. I'm the service delivery team leader at Chwarae Cymru, and I lead the team who manage our data set, which powers our web services like our multimodal journey planner.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tansy. We'll hear a bit more from you very soon. We're also joined by Joyty as well. Joyty, do you want to pop your mic and your webcam on? Hopefully you can hear us okay. Your connection's a bit slow. If you want to pop your webcam off and maybe just use your microphone, it might be better for you. Okay, Joyty, we're having a difficulty hearing you, so I'm just going to move on to Gwen, and then we'll come back to you a bit later, and perhaps you can just have a quick diagnostic and find out what's happening with your tech. Just move on to Gwen. Gwen, are you there? Do you want to pop your mic on and just give us a brief overview?
Hi, yes, so I work in Systrons Cymru, up in North and Mid Wales, in the Connecting Communities team.
Brilliant, thanks, Gwen. Yeah, and we'll be hearing a bit more about Gwen's story very soon. So I'm just going to quickly go back. Beth, I want to bring you back to the screen, please, and over to you to share your story with us. Just going to pop myself on.
Can you see me okay?
Yeah, all good. Over to you.
Right, so as I said before, I'm Beth McLaren and I work as an assistant project manager at Transport for Wales. And my role as an assistant project manager consists of working within the infrastructure project team. So my career within engineering started when I was 16 and I decided to join the Royal Air Force and become an aircraft engineer. Because I was fortunate enough to know what career path I wanted to follow. I'd done a lot of research on what grades I needed and how I was going to become an aircraft engineer. To join the RAF, the Royal Air Force, I needed 3 A to C grades in maths, English and science. And on the day of my GCSE results, I went down to the offices in Cardiff and I signed up. I'd also done some work experience at RAF Lynham, where I worked as a mechanical engineer for a week and then as an electrical engineer for a week. So it enabled me to make sure that it was definitely the career that I wanted in engineering. So during serving for the Royal Air Force, I completed an MVQ Level 3 Advanced Diploma in Mechanical Aerospace Engineering. And because it was an apprenticeship, it meant that I earned a monthly wage while I was gaining experience within engineering and studying towards my qualification. So being in the Royal Air Force on 31 Squadron, which maintained the Tornado GR4, it enabled me to travel the world and go to some of the most beautiful places. It's not all war zones and living in tents. You actually stay in some really, really nice hotels. So I served for a total of 8 years after the birth of my eldest son, and I decided to leave the forces. I worked as an engineering assessor, supporting people like yourselves to complete their engineering apprenticeships within the workplace. It was a rewarding job, helping others to succeed, but it didn't give me the same job satisfaction as working as an engineer. So then I became a production engineer for a manufacturing company where I worked on improving processes using continuous improvement techniques. So this involved making life easier for the engineers building the modules. So for example, instead of having one toolkit between 5 of those engineers and then having to share, and say for instance there was a distance of 5 meters to and from that one toolkit, you could potentially give them a toolkit each at their workbench, which saved on time and then improved build time. So now I work as an assistant project manager at Transport for Wales. I get the job satisfaction that I've craved since leaving the forces, and at the moment I'm currently working on a project which was released last week, I think, called Project Williams, which involves installing life-saving defibrillators at stations across Wales and its borders. After the tragic and distressing scenes during the Euros last week, I think it's so important that everybody can have accessible life-saving equipment available should they ever need to use it. So yeah, it's a really interesting project that I'm working on at the minute. So engineering as a whole, in my experience, is all about teamwork, and you create relationships with people that will continue even if they were to leave and go and work elsewhere. Is that element of trust and belonging that I imagine you'd fail to find in any other role, because what we do could potentially have a massive impact should something ever go wrong. The rail industry is a fantastic place to work. It's exciting, it is challenging, and there are loads of acronyms to learn. And only being within the rail industry for 6 months, everyone I've met has been like so supportive. You're not expected to know everything. You're not expected to know everything, and at the moment I rely on my line manager to point me in the right direction sometimes. And as I said before, it's all about teamwork, and in doing so you achieve amazing results. So my 5 top tips for anybody thinking about going into engineering. So I would do your homework and make sure engineering's definitely for you. Engineering's so broad, it doesn't mean just fixing dirty car engines. It could be that you want to be a CAD designer, it could be the manufacturing environment, it could be project management, it could be engineering processes. So find out what suits you and have a plan of how you're going to what you're going to do to achieve it, and just know like what grades you need and things like that. Touching on grades, if you haven't, or you don't get the grades you were hoping for, do not be disheartened. It does not mean that you can't become an engineer. There are so many different routes. There's the college route, there's the apprenticeship route, and a lot of companies now will enable you to complete a degree whilst working for them and fund it for you as well. I think it's really important to be kind to yourself. Engineering is very much a man's world. That doesn't mean that as a female you can't achieve what anyone else can. Work hard and just be the best version of you. Don't be afraid to speak up. And if you're unsure, ask questions. I know that during my training, I was the only female. And at times I wouldn't ask questions because I was scared of what the guys would think of me. So I think it's so important to, if you're unsure of anything, just ask the question and you will be respected a lot more for asking the question. And lastly, I think not just engineering, but the workplace as a whole for women, I think it's important to know your worth. Women are far less likely to argue a salary offer. So if you feel you're worth more than what's being offered, speak up, give valid reasons why you deserve a higher rate of pay, and stand your ground.
Thanks, Beth. I think they're really, really, really useful tips and advice that you can give, girls and women at home thinking about a career in engineering today, and particularly, highlighting the different routes into engineering as well, because there's so many businesses today offer apprentices as well, which is a fantastic route into becoming an engineer. And you also mentioned, around how engineering is very broad, and it is. And I think today's event just shows that we have 4 very different types of engineers at this event today. So thank you for highlighting that, and thank you for sharing your story with us, Beth. I'm sure we'll be asking you some questions towards the end. So if you just want to pop yourself on mute for now, and then I'm going to move over to Tansy now. Tansy, would you like to pop your mic and your camera on?
Hello, yeah, thanks, Emma. Yeah, so my name's Tandy Appleby. I'm the service delivery team leader at Travelline and PTI Cymru. And unlike Beth, I never really knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know I wanted to be an engineer. I've worked at Travelline for about 9 years now, which is crazy. But I'm originally from Cambridge. I went to school at John Masefield High School in Edbury. My dad was an old school 70s software engineer, so we always had computers in the house, and I was given my first computer at the age of 4. So computers have always been kind of second nature. He always tried to teach me programming, though I wasn't particularly interested in it when I was younger. He was a bit more successful with my sister than he was with me. But I was really into computer games, so that gave me the push I needed to really get to grips with computers in a way that was useful. One of my favorite hobbies outside of school was computer game modding, which is where you unpack your favorite PC game, you take out all the game files, you pick out the ones that you want to change, and then you edit them, and then you pack them back in. Back in the early 2000s, games weren't really made for modding, so you could quite often break them, but I used to love doing this. So when it came to school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. With my A-levels, I picked the subjects that were a combination of what I was really good at and what I really enjoyed. So I really enjoyed science, so I did physics and biology, but I also really liked art, and I've always been very good at art. I'm quite a creative person, so I didn't want to give up on my art at that point. So I still did that as an A-level. But of course, that gave me a really odd collection of A-levels when it came to choosing my degree. So when it came to doing my degree, I was very restricted by the courses I could get onto. I didn't want to pursue art as a career at that point, so I thought I'll do something science-wise. So I did a biology degree at Cardiff University, and Cardiff was great. I really enjoyed it. But after about my first year, I decided to specialize further in zoology because plant biology wasn't really my thing. And I finished my degree, did quite well, but I realized that I still didn't have that impetus to go into a science career at that point. I wasn't very good in the lab. I didn't like getting muddy, so fieldwork wasn't my thing either. I'm much more comfortable in front of a computer. So I worked in bars for a year whilst I decided what I wanted to do. And then after about a year waiting tables, I realized that I was getting bored. I wanted to do something more interesting that, you know, used my technical skills. So I started looking for data jobs because I figured that was probably an area that I could get into and that I would be happy with. And I saw a great job at Travelline. They were advertising for their fares data assistant. It was a brand new project they were doing, which is kind of one of the first of its kind in the UK, where they wanted to bring bus fare data to their journey planner. And I got the job, and I got to work with the project manager, and it was a really interesting project. We got to work really closely with lots of software developers. I got to work really closely with the operators to try and figure out their fare structure, how it would work, how we could model it. And it was great, and I really enjoyed it. And even to this day, our journey planner is one of the only ones in the UK that will give you journey specific fare information for bus, because bus fares are so complex and nobody wants to touch it. But after that, I became more involved in the rest of the data team, and I was given a really difficult project a couple of years down the line by our managing director to understand the entire data process from start to finish, to map it out, and to find ways in which we could streamline it, and maybe we could spot where there was duplication of work happening. And that was a great challenge for me, because it meant I had to sit down, I had to learn everything from start to finish, I had to learn lots of new stuff, but I gained lots of knowledge about how the transport data works, what we work with, and our internal processes as well. So after that, I've been helping to manage the Travelline dataset for several years, and I was promoted to service delivery team leader at the start of 2020. So that was great. So I've already mentioned my dad. He's been a huge role model for me. He's always encouraged me and my sister to pursue a career in science and engineering. But and another huge mentor for me has been Joe, our managing director, Joe Foxall. She started out as a marketing officer at Travelline, and she worked her way up from marketing officer to marketing manager, and now she's our managing director. And she really has proven that women can be really successful in transport, and she has such a compassionate and customer focused viewpoint, which I think is really important, especially in a room full of men. And she really cuts through, and I respect that. And she's always been super supportive of me, and she's given me opportunities when I haven't necessarily believed in myself, but she will still push me to better myself, and I'm grateful for that. And then another thing that I never really considered when I was looking for a job or a career early on was that I work now for a non-profit organization. So the company I work for is really socially conscious, they're very environmentally conscious, and that is something that it gives me huge job satisfaction. It's, I do a job that not only makes use of my technical skills, but also lines up with my core belief system. And that's part of the reason I've stayed with the company for so many years. It gives me huge satisfaction knowing that the service that we provide is a really vital service. The data that we manage not only powers the Chwarae Cymru services, but it also gets fed to national data sets which power Google. Our data powers local authority, bus display equipment, and there are lots of other third-party organisations that use it. So it gets used all across the UK and helps people to make those vital journeys that they need to do. So the job that I do now, like I said, I was promoted just at the start of the pandemic, which was fun. And so I help to manage everyone in the data team and the people side of things. But I also do a lot of the communication with the rest of the business, a lot of communicating with key stakeholders, as well as managing the overall data systems and processes. I do a lot of work with the Department for Transport, especially around NAPTAN, which is the UK bus stop database. And I also am working and advising a lot of projects with Transport for Wales, which is great, because we get to work on projects that are looking to help develop bus data provision for the public and advise on bus policy and transport policy. So that's really great. I get a lot of ad hoc requests from Welsh Government about bus service provision in Wales, so that can always be an interesting challenge. But yeah, I mean, the transport industry is definitely male dominated. It's not something that's ever really fazed me personally, because I've always been kind of tomboyish. I have what is seen as so masculine interests like video games, and I'm into heavy metal, extreme metal, that kind of thing. So I'm surrounded by men most of the time in my life, but I think that it's really important that women become more involved in these kind of industries, because we need that compassionate feminine perspective. Women, especially in transport, women use transport all the time, so we need equal representation, definitely. So my top tips for someone looking to get into transport or engineering, I would say, number one, find something that really interests and motivates you. If you're going to be doing it every day, it's got to be something that you like doing. Otherwise, there's no point. And you've got to be willing and able to learn and to keep learning every day. And that's been key for me. I never came in with any kind of academic qualification in engineering, but I've just learned my way through. And that's a huge thing. Just transferable skills, absolutely. And secondly, I'd say, do not let fear get in the way of your talents. If you're good at something and it's what you want to do, then go for it. Don't be scared. A great friend of mine once said that women will wait until they're 120% qualified for a job, whereas men will apply when they're 70% qualified. And I think that's very true. So we quite often hold ourselves back. So try not to do that. And my final tip would be, accept support and help when it's offered, because you never know what you can learn from other people. And I've had some really great mentors in my journey, so I'm very grateful to them in helping me through. So yeah, thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Tansy. That was a really interesting story. And yeah, I just I've made a couple of notes about some of the things you were mentioning. So important to have those role models. And you mentioned about Joe and having a fantastic line manager to champion you. And it's just so important that we have visible female role models that we can relate to. And this is something that, we're very passionate about at Chwarae, and particularly through not just for boys, is giving a platform for women, for their voices to be heard, and for, these role models to be, championed and celebrated. So I absolutely agree with that. And I was just listening about your job, and it's so unique. Well, it is to me, because I've never heard of anything like this before. And I think that's the beauty of Not Just for Boys. We shine a light on careers that people haven't heard of before. And, from personal experiences when I was in school, didn't even know half these jobs existed. So, it's just fantastic that we can shine a light on those and just make people aware of what actually exists out there in the labour market. And, you're very right to mention about women are, majority of women will, train, like travel users, public service, public transport users are majority female. So, it just makes sense that should represent, women should be represented in the workforce, in the transport sector. So I absolutely agree with you there. So thank you so much for sharing your story. If anybody has any questions for our guest speakers, then please pop them in the questions tab, and we'll ask those a bit later. I'm now going to move over to Joyty, who I believe has just dialed in now, because I know that the connection wasn't great. So Joyty, can you hear us okay?
Hello, can you hear me, Emma?
Yeah, we can hear you. Fantastic. We can't see you, but that's okay, as long as we can hear you. If you just want to share your story with us, that would be fantastic.
Sure, thank you. Right, I don't know where to start from. I done my mechanical engineering in India. I was born and brought up in India, northwest part of India, Punjab, Ludhiana city, which is famous for textile industry worldwide. Mechanical engineering. Okay, the journey started. So my parents always encouraged me. I belong to business family, and I was the first girl in 3 generations in the family. So I was always kept. They were always protective about me, making sure that wherever I need to go, they are with me. And then when I finished my school. So there is different schooling system in India. Before you go to university, it's +1, +2, rather than GCSEs and A levels. So I had 2 options. Either I go for mechanical, medical or non-medical. Then there is commerce. But I was always interested in engineering. So, but I wanted to be a doctor as well. So there was a decision to be made, and I decided to go ahead with non-medical, but I kept biology as an additional subject during that time before my university. So keeping the option open, when I finished schooling, I decided to go for engineering. Now, there is a big list. There are so many options and choices you can pick from for engineering. And I wasn't sure in which direction I want to go to. Computer sciences, it was a big no, never interested me. But I knew it's either mechanical engineering or civil engineering or other, many streams. But I decided to go for mechanical engineering because with the understanding, it covers most of the modules and it leaves almost most of the options open rather than restricting me by specializing in during the bachelor's degree. So I did my mechanical engineering in India in the class of 68 boys, and we were only 2 girls. So it was my friend who joined me at the time. Because I was doing mechanical engineering, and somehow it inspired her mother as well. So yeah, we studied together for bachelor's degree. Talking about the challenges during my studies at the time, I would say yes, there were with the restrictions at home. I was provided with everything, but my brother has more freedom because he's a boy and I'm a girl. But that was the only thing that always let me down. And other than that, my parents were always supportive for me to study as much as I want to. So I think it was clear in my mind that this is what I want to achieve. So it never bothered me. I don't know, it never came to my mind from that sense that, oh, I'm doing engineering, it's just for boys or not for girls. I know it was strange for people, but I think it's just something I wanted to do. I don't care. It's just mindset, my mindset. I think one should have as well, that if you are clear in your mind that you want to achieve something and you know what you want to achieve, then you shouldn't care about the set, what people think. Yes, what are the set trends or what's been happening in the past. This is your life. This is what you want to do, and you set an example. You go, if there is a good example you really want to follow, that's a completely separate story. But if I believe in leading by setting an example. So hence I made a decision. I put my foot down. in other words, so well, I completed my bachelor's degree in India. Okay, now what? Because that's education. I always wanted to do well. I came to UK for visit for holidays. That's when I came across voluntary work at RAF Museum, Cosford, and it was a family friend who kindly helped me in arranging a voluntary work experience at RAF Museum, Cosford, which was for me I think it was a decision maker for me for what I wanted to do in my higher education. Why UK? Why not in India to progress my career? Well, perhaps I'm going back to that, is a male-dominated industry. Yes, I agree. I didn't see me living there or existing there with what I wanted to achieve, the mindset I had. I don't think it would have existed in the world that I was surrounded with at that time. So that encouraged me to move out, to come to UK. I decided to study in UK because, of course, it's highly rated for aerospace engineering. Okay, but what made me do my master's? So, okay, after bachelor's degree, I done my master's, MSc Aerospace Engineering from Kingston University, London. When I done my voluntary work experience after my bachelor's degree in RAF Museum, Cosford, that's when I found my interest in aerospace industry, and I decided to. I made very good contacts there from retired people from aerospace industry and RAF organization as well, and community. So they encouraged me and they guided me they shared their experiences with me, that what they have done and what it involves. So there was a point, because I got a chance at the time to work on to reconstruct the body of Wellington wing. Wellington is the biggest transport airplane. So I had the opportunity to work on that to bring it back to life at the time. It was in 2015 or 2013, I believe, 13 or 14. Memory fades away, apologies. Right, so then I started my master's degree at Kingston University, London. Then where it was a part of my project to do some research and design composite in simple words. So that's when I found my interest in research in composite and materials, and that encouraged me to do PhD research in, well, I would say more research in composite and materials. I decided to apply for PhDs at the time. Mind you, I was international student in UK, and with competition, with so much competition in scholarship, I applied. I made plenty of applications, but then I wasn't the one to wait for the time when I was awarded the scholarship. So I decided to self-fund myself at the time. I went to University of Bristol. Well, I was given an offer at Kingston University as well, but then I decided Bristol University because of its contacts with National Composite Centre and its expertise in composite and materials was the main element that intrigued me at the time. So yes, I did my master's in research, not PhD, because as I said, I was a self-funded student and I funded myself for 1 year. It was around 22K for just 1 year, so along with other expenses. So and then I started working as research assistant at the university, continued working on projects. I think it was funded by Innovate UK and other EU funding at the time. So I done work at University of Bristol, collaborating with our Imperial College London, I believe it was KTH from Sweden, and other Exeter University at the time to develop composite using cellulose. So that was to replace carbon fiber and glass fiber composites. So that was quite interesting, which, well, I progressed from there, and then I moved on to Cranfield University in Bedfordshire, near London. There I worked as industrial product development engineer under the supervision of my supervisor, line manager, who was, well, he was my supervisor during my master's in research as well. Now, during that time, I was at a stage, it was all good so far, experience, exposure, development so I came to that stage where I was feeling stagnant. So I'm more of engineering mindset. I enjoy research. I'm more active person, people person, rather than desktop studies or someone who is I like to be active, in other words. So I was feeling more going towards because in research you get exposure in different type of industries. So I dealt with at the time with construction companies, with aerospace industry, automotive, as well as biochemistry. I forgot the name. Unilever, yes. I was working on a project with Unilever, although it was to develop the it was to develop the tensile testing equipment to test 1 to 2 mm fibers. So we are talking about our hair follicles, the length of 1 to 2 millimeters. So I developed that at the time, but then with my supervisor, with my line manager's interest was more into biochemistry with his expertise. So that's not something I wanted to continue my career in. And I had other, and also I was at a stage where I was feeling stagnant, and there were other challenges with my line manager. Being a woman, as people have this mindset in the industry that is a woman or you're too young to take responsibility, things like that, So I try to handle the situation. I try to have a professional conversation with my line manager at the time, explaining how the things are, how I feel about it, how I feel not supported with my professional growth. But it didn't work out so I had some consultations with my senior colleagues and the leadership team, and I made a decision to, after challenging and trying to put things right, I decided to move on. So that's when I was encouraged with, so my colleague, actually, our chief technical officer at the time at Cranfield University, Jim Hurley, he suggested me with, we had a good relationship. He knew what are my skill set. We worked together. So he said, what I want to achieve with my skill set, Network Rail will be a good place for me to progress my career. So that's when I applied for Network Rail. Mind you, I didn't know with my qualifications where I fit in with the industry, what role is suitable for me. With my engineering, mechanical engineering degree, with aerospace degree, and then with the work experience I had nothing to do. Well, I had some work experience in railway during my bachelor's degree in India, but then it's been a long time, so I didn't know how I fit in with the industry. So I applied for multiple roles, and then then suddenly I had interview invitations for a couple of roles. And this role I was invited for was advertised. Well, I was invited for interview in December after Christmas, asking to be interviewed for the 2nd of January. I was traveling to India on 3rd of January, so it didn't work out because we couldn't come to an agreement for an interview date with the travel and with the availability for the interviewers. But then happened to be, I got a call saying they have recruited somebody else. So, and then I think things didn't work out. Then Mark Newton, who is my line manager now, our senior asset engineer signaling. So he gave me a call saying, "Oh, Jyoti, you have applied. Are you still interested? We have received your application for the role you applied for earlier." So I was surprised because, as I said, I was applying for multiple roles. I didn't know because I didn't know which one I fit in right with. So I would say it was luck, but at the same time efforts as well, because I was really looking for something that interests me at the time. So now something that interests me, I didn't know what it involved. As I said, in asset engineering, as an asset engineer. And in signaling, I don't have much experience in signaling. The work experience I had in Indian Railway was more to do with diesel engines, its maintenance and the maintenance regimes. So I joined this Network Rail in 2019 June. I would say it's there hasn't been a situation or time when I have felt not spotted. I do have opportunity to continue what I have, continue the work I have done so far. So as I mentioned, I am keen in research and development, innovation. So I'm engaged. I'm always encouraged. I'm engaged with our. If you have watched or attended Rail Live, took place on 16th and 17th of June. So we represented our composite footbridge there. So I have been engaged and I have helped with the designs from the material side of that for that bridge. I'm also setting up, I have set up 3 MSc projects now. So I'm using my previous context. I'm collaborating with Cranfield University and University of Bristol to set up projects for MSc students that will help them and create awareness for them that what Network Rail or transport industry has to offer for them. So currently we are working with Cranfield University to redesign our road traffic lights. If you observed at the level crossings, we have these zigzag posts. So we are working on redesigning those to optimize, to be more cost effective and to be more weather resilient, bringing and along with modernizing it. So
sorry to stop you there. Do you want to just move on to your top 5 tips, because we need to move on to Gwen. Sorry to cut you short, but I'm conscious of the time and I want to make sure that Gwen has an opportunity to tell her story as well. Would you just be able to give a brief overview of your top 5 tips for girls and women at home considering a career in engineering?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I would say to have a clear. Well, most of the tips have been covered already, but I would say to have a clear mindset. you don't think what people think. Don't worry about what people think. If you know what you want to do, put your best in that and you will get it. And make sure and be aware of it's important that you know there is support for you available. There is mentorship schemes run by Network Rail and also Women in Rail and other organizations. And keep an eye out for, as been suggested earlier as well, for apprenticeship schemes, for graduate schemes. I think it's, and yes, these are the, I would say, main attributes for, well, be successful.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that talk, Chwarae. And lots of great advice there, particularly around mentoring. Mentoring is so important. So if people on the call today are considering getting a mentor, I would absolutely urge you to go and find somebody. And if there's something that you need help with in identifying a mentor, please drop me a message at Chwarae, and we'll do our very best to help find you a mentor going forward. But yeah, it can be really, really valuable and get your career off in the right start as well, and help you to really think about your career moves. And also, Chwarae, just wanted to say that your dedication to becoming an engineer as well really shone through, and that you just wasn't put off at all by being one of only 2 girls in the class as well, which is fantastic, and that can be a barrier for many. So thank you for sharing your story. If anybody has a question for Chwarae, please pop it in the questions tab and we'll come to those very shortly. We're now going to move over to our last guest speaker today, which is Gwen. Gwen, do you want to pop your mic and your camera on, and we'll come to you for your story. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Yes, so I feel like I've been a long time coming to my present place of work, but it's been over a long period of time. So I graduated from university the first time around with a history degree, and then came back to sort of STEM over 20 years after my GCSE exams, having effectively finished sciences and maths and technology then, if not before. I was actually dissuaded from studying maths and chemistry at A-level. I think I was sort of put in the, oh, she does arts box, which it is slightly annoying looking back, because a maths A-level would have been really useful more recently. I don't think encouraging women into STEM was at the forefront of educators' minds back in the sort of mid to late 90s, unfortunately. But so at least we're a lot further down the line, further down the line that we need to be by now, which is really good. But obviously there's work to do. I studied history because I like people's stories, but I think interestingly I'm finding that transport is just as much about people's stories as is our history. We need to understand people and places that they live and work and where they spend their leisure time just as much in order to get transport right as we do for other things such as urban planning and architecture, play projects, a myriad of other things. After university, I spent a year in Japan as an assistant language teacher in primary and middle schools, and partly to see whether I wanted to train as a school teacher, regularly return to not wanting to commit myself to that career path, if you like. I did return to Wales and found a post as a project officer for a conservation environmental charity, and worked with landowners, schools, communities and partner organisations. So I've always been involved in projects that have brought lots of different people to the table, if you like. Then I started working for Sustrans a decade ago as a schools officer, so encouraging and enabling pupils to cycle to school in the main, but obviously again that means bringing lots of different elements together to have a successful project. By then I'd come to understand that cycling in Wales and the UK generally often isn't as pleasant, or not as pleasant an experience as I'd found it to be in Japan, where I'd rediscovered cycling as a means of transport, having not cycled for most of my teenage years. I'd become passionate as well, and still am, about helping others to experience the freedom and independence that I enjoyed while cycling. And obviously, we need to make walking and cycling a lot more attractive for a lot more people. So that's up there as their mode of transport for regular journeys. Working for Sustrans opened my eyes to the state of our transport system. So I think I'd always known that our public transport lacked, in comparison to places like Japan or Switzerland, places that are always seen as being really punctual. And I'd grown up in a relatively rural area, and taken for granted that car use was a must. But the system that we've got in the UK, it's been created, and it doesn't have to be this way. And it was created incrementally, so we've missed opportunities over the years to correct the trajectory that we've been on since the 1960s. And now we've got an awful lot of work to do. So it's quite exciting to be part of that. But again, it means the workload is potentially enormous. The longer I worked in transport, the more I wanted to learn about what has got us to this point and what do we need to do to put things right. And just by chance, actually, I saw a promotion for a master's course in transport. And at the time, I didn't think I'd been looking for anything, but maybe considering now, influence of sort of close friends that had returned to academia probably did influence my decision. In the end, I settled on a master's course in transport planning and traffic engineering with Edinburgh Napier University. I had 2 young children at the time, and it meant that I could consider travelling maybe 3, 4, 5 hours to get to a university once a week, that would have a course that would do the job. And the course at in Edinburgh meant that I could study at distance and only went up to Edinburgh to sit my exams. So definitely my sort of main influence has been colleagues at Strands that have been, amazing in terms of that there's so much knowledge there already, and people that I've met through sort of local authority as well, and even individuals who are just passionate about active travel, as well as friends that have shown that taking on new roles, pursuing new learning, and their passion for their chosen fields, I think sort of gave me the impetus to take to that route myself. I learned an awful lot about from pursuing my course, but I can honestly say it's also taught me how much more there is to learn. And I think Tansy made a point about being willing to learn as we carry on. I think that's really important. Since graduating from Edinburgh Napier, I've taken on a different role with Sustrans and now work as the Network Development and Partnerships Manager in the North and Mid Wales. I'm still quite new to the role, but thankfully I'm aware of the organisation, how it works, which has helped in terms of getting up to speed quicker. And now I'm responsible for managing sort of local relationships and partnerships to influence walking and cycling network development through consultation with local authorities, partner projects, communities. I'm looking to develop and support a range of initiatives and programmes that fit with Sustrans' strategies. So that is improving sort of our national cycle network, as well as looking at livable cities and towns where we look to change transport and how people see it, and making opportunities for people to walk and cycle more, and for that to be a pleasant experience and attractive for more people to try it on a regular basis. I'm currently working with quite a few local authorities to support them to create their active travel network maps, which will inform how monies are spent in the next 15 years to create routes for people to use. So my top tips are definitely things which I've learned or done along the way. So I think innovation and change come about when we bring in a variety of different voices, and we need diversity to move forward in the best possible way. And I know others have already said that we definitely need females, and definitely need females in the transport sector. And I think I'd like to say that don't think you have to work in the way that other people do, because what you bring as your own experience to a role, that will be useful, and who knows what you can do once you're in that role, as it were. In terms of, I suppose when you're just thinking about getting into engineering, try different work experiences, whether that's whilst you're still at school, during further education courses, apprenticeships, or even in a job. Understanding what opportunities are out there is key to finding the right one for you, and then trying things to find the best way forward. And then obviously exploring sort of pros and cons of different avenues to get to your next step. When I first looked at taking up a master's course, I looked at quite a specific course, but then decided, having looked at other options, that I'd be better off with a sort of more generic course, if you like, and then I could, within that, focus on active travel and public transport. And again, looking for sort of either mentoring programs or organisations that you can join to support you on your journey. So I'm a member of Women in Transport, and although I don't join as many events as they offer, I do find the sessions that I join and things that I read from them really useful to sort of get myself up to speed and keep myself in the know, as it were. And I suppose the last thing is that it's never too late. So yeah, a second degree 20 years down the line can just be just as useful as the first one.
Thank you, Gwen. That was a lovely, lovely story. And you know what, your last point is just absolutely spot on. It's never too late to change career. And this is why we open up not just for boys, for all ages, because we just recognise that it's just never too late to change into a career that perhaps you've always dreamed of, or something's, you know, been a barrier or held you back. So you are living proof, Gwen, that, you know, it's never too late and you can have the career that you've always wanted. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sure our audience at home has taken away so many great tips from today. We are going to move over to the question round now. So if all of our guest speakers can pop their webcams on and their microphones, and we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion. We haven't got much time left. I'm conscious that, you know, we're going to be wrapping things up around about 6 o'clock. So maybe if I'll ask you one of the juicy questions that we have, and I'll get an opinion from all of you before we start wrapping up then. So I know that we've talked about barriers to diversity within the transport sector, and it's popped up in lots of your stories today around perhaps being the only woman in the class, and you know, there being lots of barriers because of your gender. So I thought I would ask you, what are the barriers to diversity in the transport sector, and what can we do to improve diversity? Tansy, shall I come to you first?
Sorry, Emma, I couldn't quite hear the question. I think I'm having some network problems. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the question, what are the barriers to diversity in the transport sector, and what can we do to improve diversity?
Yeah, so I think the transport sector has an image problem, very much so, and I think people believe that it is a men's club and it is or is a boys' club, and from my experience, that image has really negatively impacted people's decision to have a career in transport. So I think the more that we can do to show that there are successful women, and there are a lot of women in transport doing amazing things, can help overcome that image issue that may be giving people a false idea of what it might be like to work in the transport industry.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tansy. Beth, what about you? Anything to add to that? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yes, same as what Tansy said, really. I think by bringing more women into the transport industry, it creates a more diverse workforce, really. And I think as a woman, you bring certain skills to the table that the men might not. So I think it's important to have those different skill sets and different attributes within a team to be successful.
Thank you, Beth. Joyty, are you still with us? Joyty, are you still there? Can't quite hear you. You're on mute if you are. Gwen, I'll come to you. Oh, hang on.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Emma.
that's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so just
Okay.
just want to get your thoughts on how we can improve diversity within the transport sector.
Well, I think it's very important for any organization.
Pop yourself on mute, I think, Joyty.
Is this better? Hello?
Yeah, that's better. You're back. I got you.
Okay, that's all right. So I think it's very important. So in Network Rail, we are encouraging and we are approaching now mothers in school to encourage their, I won't deny that the rumors are for a reason, yes, but we are working on addressing the situation, and the situation is much better than what it was a couple of years or 5 or 10 years ago. So net transport industry is a safe place for anyone to work, and is on us as well. So we are approaching, as I said, from Network Radio Initiative, we are approaching Mother, making them aware of the initiative we are taking. How is our teams diverse? So, it's very important, as I said earlier as well during my journey, it's very important that we challenge and we train other people to open up. We can't make a change, we can't bring a change if we don't challenge other, or if we don't keep an open approach. So that's very important to bring a diverse culture in any organization.
Thank you, Joyce. You made a very good point there about challenging, and that's so important for us to do. Gwen, what about you? Any final thoughts on how we can improve diversity within the transport sector?
Yeah, I think it's everything that everyone's already said, and even it's small things. So it's just who's on that cover photo for that course that's at college or university. It's who's in who's making those announcements, whose voices are we hearing. So it's people. It's both that challenging, but also people within the transport sector checking themselves that they're making sure that they're being as inclusive as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. We are going to cut the questions there, and then we are going to kind of wrap up for tonight now, because we have reached just gone past 6 o'clock. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all of our guest speakers for giving their time and for sharing their stories. A massive thank you to our audience as well, and for the questions. Any questions that we haven't answered, we'll answer those offline, and we can email you the responses. And just want to say a massive thank you to Alexia as well for all the behind the scenes help and support. We've actually got some more than not just for boys events coming up. We've actually got one on the 8th of September at 5 o'clock, which is all about women in construction, and that's in partnership with Vinci Construction. We've also got one on the 12th of October. On here, it's the 15th of July, but actually it's been moved now to the 12th of October, which is actually Ada Lovelace Day. And that will be at 5 o'clock, and it's Women in IT, and that will be with the DVLA. We will be sending around a calendar of events with links on how you can register to these events as well. So please keep an eye out for those. And if you need to connect with us at all, give us a shout out. You can tweet us at Chwarae. You can find us on LinkedIn at Chwarae, and Facebook as well, again at Chwarae. And if you need any more help from me, here's my contact details. And yeah, again, thank you so much for everybody for taking part in today, especially our wonderful speakers. So have a great evening, everybody, and I hope to see you at a live face-to-face event very soon. Have a good evening all. I'm going to close the webinar now. Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.